Hey, welcome. We are live. Coach Diana and I are here. So hello, everyone. I'm
Yeah.
working hard to go live on Instagram. We're going to see if that works. And today we are going to be talking about fear of abandonment. That is a big topic. It's a heavy topic, something that many people struggle with, especially if we've learned to people please so that they won't leave us. People pleasing brings in a whole nother level of that. And I really do want this to be a safe place where you can reflect and share if you would like. And you're going to leave here with some tools and some hope. So I'll be asking you some questions in the chat throughout. You're welcome to share as much or as little as you want. I do want to remind you that this is Leslie Vernick's public page. However you are watching us today, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, however you're finding us, we want to welcome you. Maybe even put in where you're tuning in from. If you're new, let us know that you're new so we can give you a personal welcome. But do be careful of what you're putting on this public page, that you be mindful of who might be watching this. So welcome, Coach Diana. Thanks for being here with me.
Of course, it's always a joy to work with you.
Thank you. It looks like we're frozen on Instagram, but maybe
I'm going to go. Yeah, I'm sorry, ladies. I'm looking down a little bit. I'm going to see what I can do about that. I'm going to go look at Instagram and see what's really happening.
Yeah, see if you can see some comments. I do see a few people joining us. Hey, from New York, good to see you. Welcome. I don't know, do we have anybody? Yes, we do have some Facebookers too. Thank you for your comments coming in from Texas and Colorado. I do want to let you know we're going to take some time for question and answer at the end of our live today. So if you want to get a private question to Coach Diana and I, you can go to leslievernick.com/question/. That way it doesn't appear on social media and you can maybe put in a little more detail and not worry about who's seeing that. We've got Nancy supporting us today. So thank you, Nancy, for being here. She'll make sure we get those questions. So we just want to dive into this very important topic about fear of abandonment, how it connects with people pleasing.
Yes. So maybe we should ask our audience, what is your relationship to fear of abandonment? And how does it show up for you? I think sometimes for me, I'm not in touch with that at all, but I'm wondering if you who are live with us today have an experience with abandonment in relationships and how that affects you when it comes to not allowing yourself to be yourself, to want to please others.
So Tamara says, my ACEs score was high. So that talks about childhood trauma. That's a test that you can take that kind of identifies how stressful your childhood was. And if you had a really stressful childhood, lots of trauma, this may be impacting you with the fear of abandonment. Yeah.
Donna's saying, I experienced the fear of abandonment when I'm triggered from past experience where I was actually abandoned.
Yeah.
And we know that our brain is so functional that it will remember and highlight those experiences. And sometimes we feel like as if it's happening in the moment when it is in the past.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, which makes it hard to trust people. I see you, Rhonda. Thanks for putting that in. It's hard to rely on people when you have experience of people not being reliable. Yeah, not showing up for you. So what are you hoping to learn today? So that could guide us in what we choose to talk about. So we do have some notes on what we could share with you, but if you have a particular need, don't hesitate to put that in the chat. What do you want to learn about in terms of fear of abandonment? Yeah, so we could also talk about what is that for those who may just be hearing this for the first time. I know, Diana, you like definitions.
I do.
Yeah. Do you want to step into just defining that a little bit for us today?
Sure. I think fear of abandonment can often be a very pervasive and sometimes irrational worry that you're going to be rejected by people in your life currently,
Hmm.
or that they'll leave you physically or emotionally, maybe not show up for you in ways that you feel you need connection and you need maybe even personal touch. It can stem, like you said, Susan, from past trauma, relationship difficulties, not having our needs met. And it really can affect us emotionally and mentally.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so that anxiety, persistent anxiety often happens, fear of being rejected, others leaving you. It can come sometimes feel irrational, like why am I experiencing this?
Hmm.
Yeah, disproportionate to the actual situation that's going on, which then impacts your relationships. It can lead to certain behaviors like clinginess, jealousy, difficulty trusting others, like we saw in the chat, and that puts a strain on relationships.
And I think for some people, depending on your experiences, the fear of abandonment can also keep you from wanting to engage in close relationships with others so that you don't risk it at all. So sometimes it can lead to isolation and withdraw and just avoiding really allowing others in.
Mm, absolutely. Yeah, that need to guard your heart, Tamara. I see that. Yeah, that self protective measure, but sometimes we overly guard our hearts,
We
right?
do.
We can be overly protective, which we miss out on relationship and connection, which I think God has put in us that need for connection, good connection, healthy connections.
Absolutely. You nailed it, Susan, when you talked about healthy connection. And oftentimes we crave relationship, but I think a part of the work that we need to do is really understand and identify what kind of connection is good for us and
Mhm.
healthy for us. Sometimes we have patterns from when we were very young, and we think those relationships are healthy, but it's all we know.
Yes, it's all we know. It's all we've been taught, all we've been modeled. And so we sometimes go on to find similar relationships because it just feels normal, even though it may be unhealthy. We know how to manage it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
We don't know there's more
Yes.
deeper, better connection from
Mhm.
um, if you relate to that. Sometimes we hang on to those relationships that we're currently in, even though they're inconsistent. So when we talk about, fear of abandonment, maybe you're currently in a relationship with someone where they have been inconsistent in the past. And so it makes sense for you to fear abandoning because they have taught you how to behave in a way that pleases them. So they stay engaged in relationship with you, or there's a high price to pay.
Mhm.
And that's not often spoken. Sometimes it's hard to detect, but I think a lot of times you might know it. There's a part of you that knows it, that gets anxious, that says, if I don't cave, what's going to happen next?
Mhm. Yeah, and caving might look like over apologizing, um, avoiding conflict, looking for reassurance from them that you're
Yeah.
going to be okay. Also difficulty saying no. So if you are recognizing any of those in yourself, maybe drop a word in the chat. What's resonating with you?
SH is saying that isn't love, it's hostage taking. It's
Hmm.
cruel. It's definitely cruel. And it's not allowing you to show up for who you are or to even be who you are. Sometimes we have grown up that way and we don't know how to be any different. That's why
Mhm.
we're talking about this today. And also inviting you to take a deeper dive into what dynamics come into play for you with people pleasing. Of course, we're going to we just finished our insecurity week and we're very excited about all the growth, the transformation and the enthusiasm we had in that. And we're ready to launch something really different. our six
Mhm.
our 6 week moving beyond people pleasing drop-in coaching experience. And so I think sometimes you have to I don't know about you, Susan, but I think sometimes we need to think deeply about what we've been doing, and we kind of have to look under a lens to examine what's really going on. It just feels like a part of who we are. And if we don't examine it, we just continue in those patterns.
Yeah. Examining it. Sometimes we learn the why, and sometimes we don't really get to that, but that self-examine helps us to know our own patterns. If we don't know our own patterns, we can't get out of those patterns, right?
Right.
And that's the most important thing when we're coaching, is how do we move beyond where we're stuck? How do we get ourselves going? So we do some exploration of, where am I at now? But the
Mhm.
most important of our part of our coaching is how do we get out of that? How do we form new patterns and get to the life that we want? And that's what we want to help you do in our moving beyond people pleasing flexible summer coaching experience. So I put the banner up for you. So you can check out that page at leslievernick.com/people pleasing course.
Yeah.
And that will give you all the information. This is flexible this summer on purpose because we know you have busy summer lives, busier than probably most of the rest of the year. People are taking vacations, they're dropping kids off at camp, and it gets really hectic. So we
Mm.
wanted to make this a place where you can come. We have 9 offerings each week for you where you can come. You don't have to be narrowed into one day and time. Each of the 6 weeks we're offering this, you can switch it up. You can do a Monday one week, you can do a Thursday the next week, you can do a Saturday the third week. If you wanted to come to all 9, they are going to be the same curriculum. You could do that. So that's another one of the benefits. If you get so much out of the Monday class that you attend that you want to come again and again, you're totally welcome to do that if you have the time and energy this summer.
And you know what I like about that? I feel like, to the right of me, I have, I don't know, only maybe I don't even know, 20% of all the books I own. And actually I spent yesterday reading, and there's a lot of information. The truth of the matter is, how much of that do we really take and do something with in our lives?
Mm-hmm.
So I think what I love about the work that we are calling you to is not just to give you information, but to give you information and teach you and coach you and walk it out with you so that you can apply it in your life. So our goal for you, and our prayer and our heart for you, is that you are different. Week 1, you come in. Week 6, you've got some things in place and you are walking differently, seeing things that you hadn't been able to see. And I don't know about you, Susan, but we've done some work in group before, in growth groups and stuff. I'm sure you have as well. There's really something about being able to connect with other people,
Yeah,
right? Yeah, in the context of
absolutely. So learning the information together, but turning that into transformation as you experience it together. So talking about how you're transforming and experiencing it and listening to others who are doing the same, it can be incredibly powerful. Yeah. Yeah, I'm just tuning into the chat here. April said, I'd like to learn what a healthy boundary for this fear is today. That's why you're here today. This is something definitely we're going to be talking about in our summer coaching as well. But noticing it is a big part of that, right?
Well, yeah,
Self-reflection.
I do think there are some ways in which we could notice it. Maybe we could mention a few.
Mm-hmm.
I'll just say, if you over apologize for what you want and need or for what you choose, if you're afraid of engaging conflict and that calls you to hold back and not say what it is that you're thinking, that you're feeling, if you're needing constant reassurance that you're okay with someone. so much so that you're willing to negotiate things that are kind of important to you or your values even. And
Mhm.
we talked about this a little bit before we met, difficulty saying no. Some people don't have a hard time with saying no, and others do.
Mhm.
Um, so would you be someone that has a hard time saying no? You don't know where your boundaries are.
Mhm. Yeah, that might be part of so learning your specific fear is part of it. How can you develop a boundary if you don't know the specific fear that you're having? Really, boundaries are for you. They're defined by you. They're carried out by you. So what boundary do you need to have with yourself around fear? So defining the fear so that you can say, I'm not going to allow this fear to
Mm,
hold me back. Sometimes fear is good when we need to protect ourselves, but really deciding, do I need to protect myself here? Or am I overly cutting myself off from connection and relationship that's driven by fear, not by love?
mm. Those are good points.
So
Um,
everybody's boundaries around that are going to look different.
exactly. I think what's important to notice first and foremost is that you're hesitant to do that in a certain relationship and asking yourself why. Is it
Mhm.
a pattern that I've learned and developed, or has this person that I'm having this difficult time expressing myself or holding to my own self? Is it because they have taught me that I'm not able to be myself here? And sometimes it can be both.
Mhm. Yeah, we do learn that from others, right?
Mhm.
Rhonda said in the chat, she tends to stick with people who are abusive because she did the quotes, accepted her, right? So that may have felt like acceptance, but in fact, that may have been using, right? Using her in some way.
Absolutely. And I think we stick with people like we don't question why they're accepting us. Is it
Mm,
because we play by the rules? And I think as one example is sometimes we just go along with whatever the group wants. And I always use this example where I had some friends who wanted to do glass blowing. I wanted to do glass blowing. And so I reached out to the women that I was hanging out with and asked, "Hey, do you guys want to do this?" And they said, "Yeah, we want to do the glass blowing and make glasses." And I'm like, "That's not what I wanted to do. I wanted to do art glass fusion." And I really felt that tension. Like, do I just go find a course and sign us all up and spend $150 and come away with one glass? And I'm like, no, I don't want to do that. I want to do something creative and express myself. And so there for me was the tension. Do
mm,
I choose what I think would bring me joy and this creative piece that I wanted to go into, or do I cave to be a part of something uh, where I feel like I belong or a group activity? And I don't know. Guess what I chose?
tell us.
Well, I chose me, and it was good. I chose to find a class in art glass fusion. I created some wonderful pieces, made a friend with the teacher. It was a great experience for me, and I did it alone.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You did it alone, but you formed a new connection.
I did.
Yeah. Which there's something healthy in that also is there wasn't this overwhelming fear of losing relationship with the other friends in your life.
No,
You were able to stay true to yourself and build new connections, right?
there
That's
was there was
beautiful.
a little bit, if I had to be honest and a little vulnerable, there was a little bit of FOMO,
Mm,
you know, fear of missing out on doing something fun with that group. But that didn't mean there wouldn't be other fun times to come. So I might have caved, I guess is what I'm saying. Fear of being left out. It's a little bit different than abandonment, but similar.
yeah. Yeah. So April's asking, how do you know these fears that you mentioned are related to abandonment? How can we know that?
Well, maybe you have a little bit more to say about that as well. But I think that's where the process of joining in a group, exploring reasons why you people please can be really helpful. It's not that easy to figure out. It
Mhm.
takes time to ask yourself some deeper questions and to listen to what's coming up for you. And there are layers. And getting to the root fear, I think, is a process. I may know what the behavior is, but I have to sit back and really examine myself to determine what is it that I'm most afraid of.
Mm. Mhm.
And so there are some good questions to ask. What will happen if I say no? What am I afraid will happen if I say no?
Yeah.
And sometimes for me, Susan, I'm a little bit different maybe than other people, but it shows up more in my body before I can understand it.
Because you're tuned into your body, right? And I think that will be true for all of the ladies watching. Is our body does cue us into that, but we're not always in tune to it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, and so asking yourself, what is this feeling about? What is this fear about? And challenging yourself to step outside of your normal repertoire of behavior and see
Mm-hmm.
what comes up for you.
Yeah. So there's usually a fear of loss of connection. So you may not word it as fear of abandonment, right? Fear that somebody will leave you alone, but loss of connection
Yes.
and fear of abandonment are very similar. So that over apologizing or avoiding conflict, that need for constant reassurance, the difficulty saying no, those are all ways where we fear loss of connection with somebody, where we step in to sort of abandon ourselves
Yes.
in lieu of fostering connection with others.
And it is true that oftentimes we learn this early on. We will negotiate whatever it takes to have someone see us, be with us, and include us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That desire for love and belonging is very strong. It's hardwired in us, isn't it?
Yeah. And just to answer some of you in the chat, we are focusing around the topic today. So if you have questions around today's topic, please feel free to put them in the chat if you're comfortable, or submit your questions to leslievernick.com/question, and that will come to us anonymously so that we can speak with you about that.
Mm-hmm.
And we will have a little bit of time left over today for that as well as we continue to explore a little further. But yeah.
Yeah. So people pleasing is a survival strategy, right? And you can hear that in what we're talking about. Survival in terms of if I don't have love and belonging in this community, I won't be able to survive on my own. So it's meant to keep you safe, help you gain acceptance. But there are costs to that. And we talked about that a little bit. Loss of that sense of self. Resentment's a big one. Anxiety, we mentioned as well.
And I think for many individuals, it could be that you never really learned what it is that you want. You never really exerted, like you never learned yourself because you grew up just doing what everyone else wanted. So there is a call to really understanding what's most important to you and how to walk that out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I mentioned a few of the costs. What has people pleasing cost you? Maybe you're thinking some other ones. Maybe, Diana, you have some other costs that you can think of that come from people pleasing.
Well, I lose myself. Like you said, we abandon ourselves. And I think if that's a continual process and you're more concerned with everyone else's needs to the detriment of your own, you begin to lose a sense of self.
Mm-hmm.
And that's an exercise in futility. And we're not meant to live that way. It can be very lonely, very hollow, and I think frustrating and stressful to try to, when I think about that, I think about someone just trying to reach out and just bring everyone in to meet my needs so that I'm okay. But I have to assess everyone else's needs to meet them so that I can be okay and so that I won't be alone. So I think the absence of connection can lead to a fear of abandonment for sure.
Mhm.
And what are you willing to negotiate to have that? What are you willing to give up?
Yeah. So that loss of sense of self has lots of different components,
Yeah.
right? So we list that as a cost, that you lose yourself. But imagine the loss of self means really poor self-care,
Yeah.
right? So that could have health components, it could have spiritual components to it. Just, imagine running yourself ragged to please others is that you're really not living an authentic life. You may be forfeiting your God given purpose, your gifts, and your talents that God has put in you. If you don't take the time to explore those and nurture those, is that you may be totally off track and where God has designed you and is inviting you to live life with Him. So
Right.
very costly.
Very costly. And someone has said in the chat, hinders our relationship with God for sure. He is meant to be our most secure connection, right? And truth be told, he will never abandon us.
Yeah.
Mm. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just reading some of the costs myself, my morals, my values,
Mm.
not knowing what I want. Absolutely. One-sided relationships.
Yeah,
It's a form of idolatry. Yeah, it can be for sure.
it can.
Yeah. Mhm. So lots of costs. So what do? I saw somebody in the chat said, I know where it comes from, but how do I stop this pattern of behaviors? Well, we do want to help you with that today. How do you begin to overcome this people pleasing or fear of abandonment? We talked about step number one is awareness. Awareness is always the beginning of change. Without awareness, you don't even know that it's happening, right? So that's what we're really trying to wake you up to the costs of this
Mhm.
today so that you can decide, is it worth you going to step two, which is self-compassion, recognizing this is a survival strategy that your body has designed to help you
Mhm.
at some point in your life. And so speak to yourself kindly about this. It was meant to serve you, and it probably did at one time, but it may be costing you too much now. And also practicing boundaries. So, how do you say no? Somebody mentioned boundaries earlier. How to say no kindly, how to even know whether you want to say no.
Well, I'm practicing using your voice. If you're not used to doing that, it can be a challenge, right? And I
Absolutely.
think, practice is huge. It can be a challenge in the moment. So I would like to say with that, saying no kindly, um, with that, we kind of have to put in parentheses, allow yourself to have a pause in the moment because
Yes.
you may not be able to say it and you're tempted to say yes in the moment. But if you give yourself a pause, let me think about it. I'm not sure. Maybe I'll come back to this later. You can allow yourself to really develop some strength in thinking, is this a, we talk about the hard yes,
Mm.
firm no, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's part of boundaries actually, is that I won't allow myself to answer until I give myself a 30-second pause.
Mhm.
Right? That may be your boundary that helps you overcome this. And
Yeah.
practicing that pause has been incredibly helpful for a lot of our clients, but it's also hard to practice. And we do practice that together. And the ability to tolerate discomfort is important. Having good emotional boundaries so that you don't absorb other people's emotions. Mainly what may come up is other people's disappointment, right? Their anger at you. How do you keep yourself from absorbing that and trying to fix it for other people? That's one of the things that we're going to take a deep dive into as well.
Because you can exercise your hard no, and then when there's a tremendous amount of pushback, you can cave.
Yes.
So it's, exercising your no and maintaining your no are two different things, right? Sometimes we walk away and we begin to second guess, and we'll engage in rationalization, and then we'll go back to that behavior.
Mm-hmm.
That was not good for us.
I see on Instagram somebody saying, how do you heal the resentment? So when I think about the feeling of resentment is often tied to porous boundaries. So if you're feeling resentment, that's always my cue. If I feel resentful of someone, is to tune in to say, where have my boundaries with myself been overly laxed? Where am I saying yes, where I might need to say no? Or my body's telling me to say no, and I'm not listening to it, and I'm saying yes instead. So resentments are often tied to boundaries, and doing that assessment of what are my boundaries and where might I be crossing my own boundaries. As far as healing it, I think that's a way to overcome it. But how do you heal it? You may be talking about broken trust or broken connection in the relationship of some sort. If somebody is not being a reciprocal partner, if this is not a mutual relationship, and that really takes work of both people to heal that, to repair what's been broken. If somebody's been taking advantage of you purposefully, is that they really need to own that and work on their part of that. But your part is really establishing those boundaries and following through with them.
And we can always learn about relationships and about ourselves when we're practicing these steps. I mean, I think sometimes, as we're talking about it today, we think we should do it perfectly just because now we have some information. But I would say that change is a process. And with each experience that we engage in, trying to, maybe it's a boundary or learning our no, with each experience, it helps us to grow, and we learn so much about ourselves and others in relationship to us, what they're available for, how safe they can be. We may learn that we can trust people that we didn't feel like we could, that they're there for us. So it can be a really positive and healing experience for us, but we don't know until we try.
Absolutely. Yeah. And some people make assumptions without actually trying, or they've tried in a way that's inconsistent and reckless or aggressive, and then they throw up their hands. So we really try to create a safe place to practice these things, and where we can give you support. I love in group coaching where we learn new things. We get the opportunity to practice live together. We can do role plays. We can develop conversations together and practice that in safe community, and then take it into our own worlds where it may be a little more difficult, and then come back and say, hey, this is what happened. This is what went well. This is what I didn't like about it, or these are the obstacles, where we can continue to develop the skills that are needed.
Absolutely. So it's always way better to do it in a practice session. And then you can come back and you can process what worked, what you'd like to do differently. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
So Tamara's saying, I always had the intention. I'm learning to actually be intentional. That's a great statement. We have the intent, I have my planner. I have intention to move through so many things today, but will I be intentional about actually doing it?
Yes. I love that too. I often say, I have interest, but I haven't set my intentions, right? So even listening to this live today, you might be interested. right? You might be interested in learning to develop boundaries or, different ways to say no that are kind. But if you really want change in your life, you're going to have to be intentional about that change. So
Mm,
perhaps you want to just look up the sales page that we have here on the screen, leslievernick.com/people pleasing course, to learn more. And if this would be helpful in you being intentional about moving beyond people pleasing, we do want to help support you in that.
absolutely.
We've talked a lot about boundaries today. I see it in the chat a lot. I'm wondering, what's one boundary that you wish you could set? So if you feel comfortable, put it in the chat. What's a boundary that you would like to set that you think would help you move beyond people pleasing or get past the fear of abandonment?
Maybe it's that, what did you say, 30-second pause?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
30 seconds can be a long time, right? Of silence if you're not used to that.
Yeah, when I think about the 30-second pause, I'm not sure. I like to have words like, I'm not sure. How about I get back to you on that? I'm not even going to ask for permission to get back. I'm just going to say, I'm not sure. Let me get back.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Let me think about that. Yeah.
Sometimes we might have a tendency to avoid answering, but it's good to be direct. It's good to be honest and direct and firm. I need some time. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a difference between taking a pause and avoiding, right? It's not
Yes.
meant to be avoidance. It is meant to be an assertive place to give you that space between stimulus and response to be able to notice what's going on with you before you make a choice.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and state your yes or your no.
So we've got a boundary that you would like to set. Kathy is saying, I will walk away when I feel unsafe or manipulated.
Mm.
So as you think about that, what would be different for you and in you if you choose to walk away when you feel unsafe? How would that leave you?
Mm. How would it leave you internally? Is that what you're asking?
Absolutely. How would it leave you internally to be able to walk away, just noticing that you're not feeling safe, you're feeling manipulated, and you're
Mhm.
choosing to walk away?
Mm.
I've got a couple words for that, but I'm wondering what our ladies in the chat would say.
Yeah, I know what's coming up for me. If you've not practiced this before, I'm going to guess there's going to be a real mix going on. There's going to be a mix of worry and fear that pops up, right?
Mm,
What's going to happen if I've now just walked away because I felt unsafe and manipulated? Um, there's going to
right.
be some uncertainty. What's going to happen next? Right? But there may also be some empowerment that comes up.
I think you nailed that.
Yeah. Some pride that you've really shown up for yourself. It feels good to be assertive. There's a sense of success that comes with that. Some peace. Yeah, I see that, May.
Yeah. And Kathy's agreeing. It would leave me feeling safer, but also a little fearful of what might be next.
Yes.
I,
Yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say, for me, a good way to look at fear is it's always a future forecaster.
Mm.
I mean, unless you're in imminent danger right in front of your face, most often fear is future focused
Mhm.
and it's threatening us, often with things that are not likely to occur.
Mhm. Yeah, it's not a great predictor all the time, right?
No.
And it tells you you can't. Instead of encouraging you that, yes, these things may happen, but you also have other choices. You can keep
Right.
yourself safe. So I love what Kathy said. It would leave me feeling safer. That's such an incredible feeling when you show up for yourself and you create your own internal safety. When you listen to yourself, when you're in tune with your body and your emotions and your needs,
Mm.
something incredible happens when you don't abandon yourself. All of a sudden, you're not looking for others to do those things for you. You learn, wow, I can do that for myself, or I can tune into my faith and look at how God shows up for me, so that I don't feel abandoned by others. I feel safe and secure with myself and with God. Such a powerful thing.
So that just leads me to ask the question for ourselves is, what if I stopped fearing abandonment of others and stopped abandoning myself?
Mm-hmm.
Because
Yeah,
your choice. Yeah.
that is an incredible quote.
Should I type it in the chat?
Or maybe Nancy's got us already. I know she's been great about putting things in the chat already, but ask that question again. And
What
then
about,
I really want to see the answers to this.
okay. What could be different if I stopped fearing abandonment from others and stopped abandoning myself?
What could be different? What
Yeah.
comes up for me, honestly, is that sense of peace and safety.
Mm. Well, it's like I've got you. I've got me. I've got me, right?
Yeah.
So often we're waiting for someone else to rescue us or bring us in, but really it's us. And we talk a little bit about being our own heroes, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so stepping out of being a victim in that situation or a potential situation, what if we were our own rescuer?
Mm-hmm.
I got you. Even if you hold true to yourself, I've got you.
Mm-hmm.
Someone else rejects you. Yeah.
Yeah. And how many of you do that for yourselves? You might do it for your child or your best friend, but to be able to say, hey, I got you.
Right.
We can handle this.
I always, yeah, I always like the idea. For me, the bus analogy is great. You know, I want to be in the driver's seat of my life. Other people may get to have some ideas about where we're headed, but they're in the back of the bus. And if I let someone else take that driver's seat, I'm going to step outside the bus and just abandon myself. So I'm either going to be on the back of the bus or I'm going to be running myself over. So I want to be the one who's charting the course.
Mm-hmm.
I want to be the one that's in control of where our destination is. And this is really a sneaky thing, this fear of abandonment.
Mm-hmm.
And it is really a cry of a younger part of ourself that doesn't have strength or agency. And I'm loving in the chat how, people are saying a sense of independence. It would be loving myself, being secure, and bring me solitude.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. A solitude in a positive light, hopefully, right? Somebody said isolation. We're not looking for isolation. We're looking for that ability to be with yourself that feels safe and trusting and comfortable. Which does, I think, take some time to develop. If you are used to needing others in order to feel safe, secure, and comfortable, it's
Yeah.
learning how to do that with yourself. And not, I don't mean a way that's isolating where we don't know how to be in connection, but we know how to find good, healthy connection. So taking that break from dysfunctional or antagonistic people in our lives, stepping away from that and learning how to be safe with ourselves then helps us to learn how to develop healthy relationships.
Absolutely. And I feel like as we step out of people pleasing and learning new behaviors, we're also going to be learning what relationships we want to continue to invite in, and those where it would cost us to continually abandon ourselves or exhaust us. And that's not a bad thing. We only have so many resources to go around. And so we really need to be selective about what we let in and who we let in and what we're available for. That's what our coaching weeks are going to be all about. Is really just thinking more deeply about how you want to live out your life so that you can be empowered with the tools to transform what you're currently doing.
Mhm.
Yeah. And I want to just answer this question that we have is, so the question is, how can I be a supportive wife and help my husband overcome his fear of abandonment? Or is that something he has to work out on his own? And I have some thoughts about that. The question I would ask myself is, are there behaviors or things that I'm engaging in that would leave him feeling abandoned? So there may be some ways in which I'm behaving with someone that might contribute to them feeling a sense of abandonment. I don't know what those might be.
Mm.
You might want to ask your partner, are there some things that I'm doing that are triggering your abandonment? See what you can own in that and how you can help that person to feel safe and secure in their relationship with you. If your partner is being triggered by abandonment issues that are not related to your behavior, yeah, that would be something that he would need to work out on his own. You could be a supportive and loving partner along with that, but I tend not to want to do someone else's work. I just don't know what they're thinking, what they're feeling, or if they're even willing. And so I usually leave that. But I always like to say, like, what's my role? I don't want to play into that. I want to be healing part in their life.
Mhm. I love how you answered that. So it's the turning inward to what's going on with me that might be looking like I'm abandoning him, right? Or rejecting him, instead of looking outward to how can I overfunction for him so that he doesn't feel what he's feeling. And I think that's really important, especially when we're talking about people pleasing, is we can rush in oftentimes to overfunction for others and rescue them from their situations, instead of taking that moment to pause and say, how might I be responding in ways that are triggering for this person that I know and love? And that question that Coach Diana formulated is a great one. Asking him, right? What are the things that I might be doing? So if he's got some deep work to do, he may say some things that are really not yours to own. So that's why you need to do that, your own examination of yourself. Because if he's got some old wounds that he hasn't really looked into healing, he may be asking you to protect him and heal him and overfunction for him so he doesn't have to do the hard work.
Yeah.
So here's another question for you. How do we know if our need, in capital letters, for connection is healthy?
Connection is always healthy. It is literally what we're designed for. The question is, the need for connection is healthy. How you go about it can be healthy or unhealthy. And if you're called to our audience, I would speak to that. Sometimes you know that people are trying to connect with you in ways through using things like manipulation. They're seeking power and their control. That's connection. It's unhealthy connection. If I'm trying to connect with, so say I have a difficult day. Should we make up a scenario here? Sure. I have a difficult day and I need some support. I might call a friend. I might call Susan and I might talk some things through with her. That might be a difficult day. That might be a healthy thing to do. If I call Susan every day, with every difficult moment, that would be an unhealthy, needy connection. That would be too much for her to bear and really unreasonable for me to not take responsibility and ownership for my own needs. But always, connection is what we're designed for. What we want to empower you to do is to find ways to have healthy connection. That's why we're inviting you in to discover the ways in which you engage in people pleasing that you don't even know, because we want you to walk solid in offering yourselves to people without agendas, without extreme needs. We do need one another, but we don't want to need with a capital, like, I'm not okay.
Yeah.
You don't meet my needs. We're going to show up as wise and mature adults. We're on this path to maturity as Christian women.
Yeah. Yeah, that need, when it becomes desperate, right? When it becomes desperate that we go outside of alignment with who we are, with our purpose and our calling, or who we want to be as women, when it becomes so desperate that we're outside of that, that's when it becomes problematic, right? Connection is good.
Yeah. Connection's always good. Susan, I got a question for you. You didn't know I was going to ask this.
No.
Is there ever such a thing as too much connection?
Well, the first thing that came up in my mind is the word enmeshment, right? When you said that, too much connection, meaning we sort of morph into one person, right? Our identity goes away and we become joined so much that we don't know who we are. So that's what I think of when I think of over connection.
Got it.
That you no longer have an independent identity. Yeah, what were your thoughts behind that question?
Well, I want to make sure that we define, like, answer the question, like, what is healthy connection? I think we can say, I like to be connected to people, and we can use that as, we can use too much connection as a way of avoiding. This is what I was thinking.
Uh-huh.
And the other part to that, like, as a way of avoiding knowing myself, being with myself, you know what I mean? There's, as with anything, there's balance in life. And then I also think a part of that is just knowing a little bit about who I am as an individual. I may have less of a need for connection than someone who is, quite frankly, more extroverted.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I like that word balance, right?
Mm-hmm.
The balance between connection with God, connection with self, and connection with others, that we aren't overly put into any one of those categories, but we are able to find, and everybody's different, how much they need
Yes.
connection with others and connection, like time alone, right? So just knowing yourself, but making sure that you're balancing with what you need.
So I want to ask you, is this a good time for us to ask our audience, what were your takeaways from our time together today? What did you hear that you're going to take to heart, that you're going to add to your steps and walk it out? And I'm also curious, how many of you are interested in our Moving Beyond People Pleasing? The details are in the chat. I will read it out loud for people who can't see the chat. If you want to look at the details for everything you're going to get, which is quite a bit, in our flexible summer coaching course, it's leslievernick.com/people pleasing course.
Mm-hmm. So I love to see your takeaways in the chat. While you're doing that, there's a funny comment on Instagram about, we just had our Moving Beyond Insecurity Challenge week last week. It was really incredible to be there. She said, I only attended one day last week. There were 5 days. She says, dang it, people pleasing inhibited me. So that's funny. So perhaps you're able to join us for our Moving Beyond People Pleasing flexible coaching. This is why we're making it flexible, is if you are heavily scheduled this summer, is that you have 9 opportunities each of the 6 weeks to join us. And so hopefully that helps. Just as a side note, you do have the replays available to you to watch those Moving Beyond Insecurity Challenge Weeks videos. But in our flexible summer coaching experience, you have 9 opportunities to come, to be live. We do want you to be live with us because it is transformational to be there with us and to ask your questions, to share your wins, to be able to actually practice saying your no's, if that's what you need to work on, practice your boundary statements, practice having those conversations that might feel really scary and difficult, is that we are stepping into transformation during those 6 weeks when you are live with us. And you have a coach with you each day in order to help you with that. So it's not just information. We're talking about transformation.
Absolutely. So my question is, what's it going to cost you not to change? What will it cost you not to change?
What a great question.
Yeah, I guarantee. Can I guarantee? I don't know if I should. But if you do the work, if you show up and you engage, you will create change in your life. That's a given.
Yeah.
I want to invite you to join us tomorrow at noon. Procrastination, laziness, or something deeper. Ooh, that sounds great. Yeah. So don't procrastinate looking into the program. Don't procrastinate the change you need in your life. If you are, join us tomorrow and figure out, why do I put things off, right? So, yeah, Libby's saying it could cost me our family's future.
That's a big one.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
Tamara's taking it again to go deeper. You'll have many opportunities to interact with each one of us as coach.
Yes. Yeah, we're each taking 2 of the 6 weeks. So you get to experience all 3 of the coaches. This video that we're doing live here is going to be resting in social media. Wherever you're watching it now, you can come back to and watch that. I see your question in Instagram.
Yeah. And thank you so much for being with us today.
Yeah, it's been great to be here. I still am watching for those takeaways. I do see some. Yeah. So you may be thinking this people-pleasing course is right for you, but will you actually take the step into it? Your first step here might be to just click on the sales page and look at the details and learn what could be different for you this summer. By the end of this summer, life could be different. You could become unstuck from the places that you're at. All right. Brenda says she's joined. Great.
Nice job.
I'm so happy to see that. So I don't see any other remaining questions. If you do have one, pop it in the chat, but we're going to be closing out this live in just a minute or so. And if you have questions about this coaching program, I want to be able to answer those for you as well. Any last thoughts from you, Coach Diana?
I just think it's been wonderful to be here with you and with all of our ladies today. You have a fantastic day as well, and we'll see you tomorrow.
Okay. Yeah. Sounds great. All right. We're going to end here. Bye, everybody.